So this is I get that I get that this is we're getting towards the end of what is a long day on Zoom. So I'm going to try and keep this relatively quick and lighthearted, but hopefully it's going to throw out some ideas as to how we can make you guys more productive. Because ultimately the average worker, the research says, I know that you got some slightly different numbers thrown at you earlier on, but the research I read is that the average worker gets distracted every 11 minutes and it takes them a further 11 minutes to refocus. So that's a massive destruction on both your productivity, but also the productivity of your team. So anything that we can do that allows us to focus better or our team to focus better will allow us to achieve our goals way quicker and way better. I don't know, has anyone here seen the TED Talk that is entitled, "This is what happens when you reply to spam email"? It's a really funny TED Talk. So basically this guy, all of the, when you get the email from the guy from Nigeria saying that you just need to send this amount of money and you'll get, so basically he engages in a conversation with him because he figures that the more he's chatting to him, the less he's chatting to other people. So it's a really funny TED Talk around the conversation that he has with this spammer from Nigeria. But ultimately, when it comes to distractions, you get what you allow. If you allow the distractions, you'll get the distractions and you will get a fraction of the work done that you want to do. I want to just get you to do a quick exercise to get you kind of brain working again. So I want you to get a blank piece of paper or a blank screen on your iPad or whatever you use. Right, so what I'm going to get you to do is I want you to write down the numbers 1 to 26, and then I want you to write down the letters of the alphabet A through to Z, and I want you to do it as quickly as possible. So has everyone got a pen and paper ready? And put your hand up when you've finished, starting now. So 1 through to 26, and then A to Z. We're all in 24 seconds to 33 seconds. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you to do exactly the same exercise again, but this time I want number 1, then A, then number 2, then B, then number 3, then C. So on your marks, get set, go. So you've just done exactly the same tasks. You've just messed up the order. What you've done is you've highlighted what is essentially known as. So I heard a speaker a few years ago talk about the fact that there's no such thing as multitasking, there's switch tasking. Our brain only does one thing at once. So if we're multitasking, we're not actually multitasking at all. We're switching from one task to the next, back to the other, back to the other, back to the other. And hopefully what that exercise has just showed you is that you are far less effective at delivering either of the results when you switch back between the two. If you focus on one task, then the next task, you get far better results than going from one back to the other, back to the other. So if we can focus our productivity on bursts of absolutely brilliant work, we will achieve far more. And in fact, if you read Robin Sharma's book, The Everyday Hero, he talks about the 7 threats to world class, and several of them are based around this erosion of our productivity. So one of the things is talent erosion, energetic diversion. So these are the things that threaten us becoming world-class at anything that we do. And so everything that we can do to keep us in the zone, in flow, like Matt was talking about earlier, will help us achieve way more and become way more, become world-class at what we do. So one of the books that I mentioned earlier that I'm going to reference a few times here, which is a really brilliant book, and I'll mention it in the valuable resources at the end, is Indistractable by Nir Eyal. Really, really brilliant book. Loads of great ideas in there. But he talks about indistractable, and he says that the opposite of distraction is traction. We always think it is focus, but actually it's traction. It's how can we gain traction, which is ironic given that we've been talking about the book Traction earlier on. But traction is the opposite of distraction. And that's what we're trying to get in business, because traction moves us towards our goals. And that's essentially what Gino Wickman talks about in Traction, is we're trying to move towards our goals, whereas distraction moves us away from our goals. And regardless of whether that's work goals, health goals, family goals, anything that distracts us makes it less likely for us to achieve our goals. When we're getting traction, we've got a much better chance. And we see this in many different walks of life. And one of the examples that Nir talks about is nurses. So nurses, what they were finding was there was a really high error rate when they were making their medicine dispensary. And so they got nurses wearing this ridiculous red vest, which basically said, I'm doing my medicine dispensary, please do not disturb me. And as a result of that one change reduced errors around medicine dispensary, which have a life-threatening impact. They reduced the errors by 88%. That is a phenomenal change just by putting a bib on. Now, I appreciate interruptions lead to mistakes. And whilst they might not be life-threatening in your business, ultimately, what we're trying to do is we're trying to minimize interruptions, minimize mistakes, because that will deliver better work and more accurate work. I'm just going to see what the chat said. Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Charlotte. And apparently there's 4 triggers to distraction. So one of the things that we need to look for is the pain that triggers a distraction. So that could be boredom, for example. I'm bored, therefore I look at my phone. It could be, all sorts of different pain triggers that trigger the distraction. Once you've identified that, what you need to do is write down the trigger. Then you need to explore the sensation around that trigger. So what do you feel when you get this bit, the bit that I'm rubbish at, trying to understand how I'm feeling? I'm totally hopeless at that. But, are you feeling butterflies? Are you feeling twitchy fingers? Those sorts of things. Then the 4th step is looking for pivot movements, like stuck at the traffic lights, for example. So, and then one of the things that Nir EL talks about is the 10-minute pause idea. So if you think, I want to look at my phone, I'm about to look at my phone, what you can say to yourself is, I'll look at my phone in 10 minutes. Because there's a very good chance in 10 minutes, that initial urge, that initial trigger will have passed, and you'll go, actually, I don't need to look at my phone. It was a bad idea. I was just bored, and I'm gonna do something more productive. But there's he talks a lot about this pause on a distraction, and just come back to it and go, okay, I'll do that. And if it's important, I'll do it, but I'll do it in 10 minutes time, because 9 times out of 10, after 10 minutes, you realize actually it wasn't important. One of the other things that he talks about in terms of avoiding distraction is he talks a lot about focusing on the inputs, not the outputs. So for example, he uses sleep as an example here, and he talks about the fact that we need to focus on the fact that you're resting to get sleep, not how much sleep you're getting. We all know what it's like, particularly when you've got a flight the following morning, you're thinking, oh, I've got to get up really early, I really need my sleep now. And as a result, you get even less sleep. You can't fall asleep because you're stressing yourself out. Whereas if you focus on the input, i.e., I'm resting here, the body gets what the body needs, I'm doing everything I can to sleep, then actually you're more likely to fall asleep, but because you're more relaxed about the process. And so you want to think about, is the trigger serving me, or am I serving it? And we'll come on to what those triggers are. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get you spending more time in that flow state that Matt talked about earlier on. And really, so what you want to try and get to is the point where you're actually creating entire days where you do nothing but activities that put you in flow. So strategic coach program, which is what I was doing, or I'm doing, that's the coaching program I paid to attend, talks about 3 days, focus days, and buffer days. Focus days are where you're just doing the 3 things that make you that you do, the 3 things that are, like I talked about earlier on, in that they're the 3 things that A, you love, and B, you're really good at. And what we want to try and do is create time blocks, and ideally whole days, where we only do those activities. Now, when I first started out with this coaching and started Efficient Portfolio, that was see clients, find new clients, work on clients, project. Gradually, as I grew the business, it was marketing, as in sort of kind of speaking to engage new clients, dealing with high-end clients, and managing the business. That was the three things that was my three unique ability items. But the more time we can spend focusing on that, the better, because ultimately, if you remember when we've talked about flow before, flow are those activity. When we're in flow, we're doing those activities that essentially give us energy, as opposed to draining our energy. And that's what we want to spend more and more time doing. And of course, also time flies when we're doing those activities. So if we want to become indistractable, we can actually start to make pacts with ourselves. We can make what they call the Ulysses Pact. So Ulysses was, I'm not very literate, as you probably have worked out when it comes to things like this. So I'm sure Charlotte will correct me on the story, but essentially Ulysses wanted to go and sail past the island that would cause everyone to be distracted and go off to it. So basically he knew that he would be distracted by the island. He knew his crew would be distracted. So he got his crew to tie him to the mast, and he blinded or blindfolded, can't remember the exact story, the rest of the crew. So they couldn't be distracted by the island because they wouldn't see it. And he couldn't be distracted whilst he could see it because he was tied to the mast. And essentially one of the best ways that we can do, that was it. Beeswax in the crew's ears. That was it. Sorry, I've got the notes here that I should actually look at. But essentially, what we can do that with pacts around the things that distract us. So what we want to do is we want to make it more difficult to do the things that are a distraction and easier to do the things that are good for us. And whether that's an app limit, so I put a time limit on social media apps on my phone. I can override it if I need to, but it's the very mechanism of saying, right, I have 15 minutes available to me on social media on my phone. And once I've got through that 15 minutes, I have to tell it I need more time. But by going through that mental act of, right, I'm giving myself more time, I'm like, I know I've already hit the limit. So therefore I've spent, unless there's a really good reason why I need to be on social media, I've had my fill today. So there's lots of different ways that we can do this. We can create packs around. So one of the things that gets talked about in Indistractable is I will burn a £50 note if I do not go to the gym. That's a pretty horrible pact, isn't it? I've heard other people making pacts where they will donate money to the political party they hate most if they don't do a particular thing, like go to the gym. So you can create lots of different packs around avoiding things that make you distracted. But one of the things I would encourage you to do as a business owner is to control how people contact you. Like, annoyingly, I'm literally speaking to you, and as we speak, somebody just phoned my mobile phone. I'm sure it was a delivery driver or something. I don't know, but obviously I can't take the call now. But like, why I've given them, you have to give a delivery driver your mobile phone, don't you, when you place the order? But the point is, in business, you don't want this. And I was buying this particular house actually down in Cornwall recently, and to start with, it occurred to me that it was really convenient that I could just pick up the phone and speak on direct. I could call the direct dial number of my conveyancing solicitor, and she would always answer the phone. I could get straight through to her, and I thought, this is a great thing. I really like this thing. And then I thought about it, and I thought, but the problem is, every time I phone her, I'm interrupting whatever it is that she's working on, and that will take her 11 minutes to refocus on. Or potentially she's making a mistake on my conveyancing because somebody else has phoned her in the same way the nurses have experienced. So until COVID, I never gave any of my clients my mobile number, never had a direct dial number. Everybody phoned reception. And I always said it was for their benefit, because I didn't want them trying to get hold of me while I was on holiday through my mobile, because I wouldn't answer the phone. It's family time. So I would encourage you, if you do give your clients your mobile, because what I've experienced since COVID, around COVID and around selling the business, I end up having to give my mobile to a few clients. And 2 or 3 of them, and I haven't given it to all of them by any means, but even within a small collection, 2 or 3 of them have started to abuse that responsibility. I got like one not very good client. I had no idea. I just stupidly phoned him from my mobile, and he obviously saved it. But at 4 o'clock on a Friday, but a Friday I wasn't even working, I was on holiday, I started getting text messages from this client about something that was nothing to do with us as a business. He was being let down by, it was actually just the fact that he was being impatient, actually, it turned out. But I couldn't do anything about that at 4 o'clock on a Friday when I'm on holiday. But it totally destroys the next 2 or 3 hours of my Friday, and actually all weekend, I'm thinking, oh God, I'm going to have to deal with this on Monday. There is zero reason why, if he'd phoned reception, what he'd have got is a receptionist that have gone, thank you very much for letting me know the problem. I will get so-and-so to deal with it. So-and-so is not available at this moment in time, so they'll deal with it on Monday. Thank you for letting me know. He would have actually got a better response than I could have given him by text message, and I wouldn't have to worry about it. So I would really say, don't give your mobile phone, don't give a direct dial number to any of your clients, because every time they distract you, it's taking you at least 11 minutes, 20 minutes on another piece of research that I read to get back into the work you were doing. This comes back to the conversation we were having before about, if we cut their thumbs off, they wouldn't be able to speak to each other. With phones, people tend to be present but not accounted for. We've really got to, phones, if you watch Social Dilemma, we know, you can see why we're distracted by phones so easily. So I really want you to think about how you can stop your phone distracting you. I turn off all notifications on my phone except text and call. I have 0 notifications on anything. One other, Nottingham Forest scores. That's the only one that but fortunately they don't play very often and they don't score many goals, so I don't get many of them. But honestly, so WhatsApp messages, definitely not. Social media, definitely not news alerts. God, it drives me crazy when I'm in a workshop and I hear somebody's BBC notification going, bad news alert, because that's of course all it's ever going to be. Like, it's just massive distraction. Turn off all notifications. I've even got I've got a smartwatch that could pop up with lots and lots of notifications. Again, I turn them all off. All it is a distraction from what I'm doing at any moment in time. One of the biggest ways that we drain our productivity is email. I've talked about the outsourced inbox before, but I'll reiterate it here. Get somebody else managing your inbox. Victoria manages my inbox. I get her to unsubscribe to stuff that's not important. We create rules so that emails go into certain folders. But it's one of the most important things that you can get your PA doing is managing your inbox so that you only see the emails that you need to see, and half the emails can either be deleted or delegated before you ever even get to see them. The way that we do that is we have focus, buffer, and team emails. So all the emails from the team go into one folder, because if they're spamming me, I'm quite happy to tell them that they're spamming me. And then everything else is focus, buffer, or news. Victoria files them. Buffer, I only check once a month. Focus, I know it's probably the 3 most important emails I get a day. But when we get an average of 100 emails a day, and on average it takes 2 minutes per email, that means the average person is spending half of their day dealing with emails. It's a massive drain on productivity. So one of the things that we want to think about is, how can we also reduce the number of emails we get and the time we take responding to emails? And so that's one of the things that I want to kind of focus on next is, if we want to reduce the number of emails that we receive, one of the best things to do is to send less emails. If you reply to less emails, you'll get less emails. I'm not saying ignore people flat out, but if the concept of reciprocity means if you send an email, somebody's likely to send it back, you send it back again. Another tool, so send less emails wherever possible. Another tool we can use is Calendly. So instead of having emails backwards and forwards, shall we meet Tuesday? No, I can't do Tuesday. What about Wednesday? Send them a link and they just book themselves into a time that's convenient to them and fits in with your schedule. We've got, Victoria sends people links for me to, again, saves her time. There's no point in me paying Victoria to go backwards and forwards when they could just book themselves in. Another idea from near EL was to schedule delivery to the latest possible. So you write the email reply, but if you say, well, they don't really need to see this reply until Wednesday, schedule the delivery to Wednesday, because that way they won't reply until Wednesday at the earliest. Again, you'll get less emails back. Unsubscribe, direct emails to junk, create rules will all save you getting as many emails. And then in terms of the time to deal with emails, one of the pieces of advice, which we haven't implemented yet, I need to share with Victoria, is to tag emails by the day that they need to be dealt with, so that you only ever look at an email twice, because it's very easy to get an email, you read it and go, don't need to deal with that today, I'll come back to it. And then tomorrow you're looking at it again to go, oh no, I probably need to do that next week. And then Monday you're looking at it and going, well, actually, probably Wednesday is the right day. If you just tag the email at the start to say, deal with it on Wednesday, which emails you've got to deal with on any one day. One of the other tools, he says, to time box time. So essentially say, right, okay, I'm going to spend an hour replying to emails at the start of the day and half an hour at the end of the day. And that's all I look at email for. The rest of it, I'm not doing. And then like once a month, I'm going to spend 2 hours going through my buffer emails once a month to clear them out. Group chat, the suggestion is that we should use group chat like a sauna, engage intensively for short periods of time, because you can just get so many flipping messages in group chat, whether it's WhatsApp, whether it's Snapchat, whatever the hell that is. You've just got to, again, mute chats that you're not engaged in, but turn off the notifications. And again, time box group chat catch up. One of the things, I'll come on to, so actually one of the ideas that we haven't implemented in the business, but I think we should, is if everyone in the business has the same time boxed group chat catch up, like on Teams, let's say, then when you send a message, so if we're all doing between 11 and 11:30, we're spending half an hour on Teams. If I send a message to Charlotte at 1 minute past 11, she's on Teams at the same time, so she'll reply. We can basically get it all done in half an hour and forget Teams for I haven't tried that, but it's one suggestion, and I think it's a really good suggestion to try employing. So you have a business time put aside, a business time box put aside for group chat. Again, one of the things we can do is get rid of pointless meetings. So if there's no agenda, no meeting. One of the great things about Traction, again, is that it gives you a meeting agenda for all the important meetings. So if your meeting doesn't have an agenda, it shouldn't happen at all. And then one of the things that we have implemented, which we'd got into a bad habit around COVID is only one screen in the room. So tech-free meetings, other than the person that is either taking notes or controlling the screen or whatever. Nobody else should be behind a screen. It's really not good. We got into bad habits doing it, and it's so it should be tech-free meetings other than the person that's controlling the central piece of technology or taking notes. Paper is sufficient, even if they have to catch up. Phone, you can reorganize your apps, move all of the distraction apps to the far page and put them in groups and get rid of the clutter and just kind of move everything away. And actually, one of the pieces of advice, which I'm yet to try, but I really like the idea of, is delete all social media from your phone. So you still engage in social media, but you do it purposefully in time-boxed time and on your desktop, because it will massively reduce the amount of time. If social media is sucking away your time, then that is a great way to reduce the risk of essentially, the app slot machines that are constantly trying to drag your attention away from what you wanted to do with your day. But certainly turn off noise notifications and even the red dots for many things certainly they're sufficient, but in many things it's best without those as well. I've also trialed not having work email on my phone at all. I had it for about 3 months, and then I was going away and reintroduced it to my phone, and I'm not sure it was a good idea. I kind of sway on this one. There's some people think that it's the best thing ever. For me, it then creates an inconvenience at certain times. I end up adding it back in. So, but it's something you might want to explore. Creating a vision board on the desktop and keeping the desktop tidy is advice I've given you before. But again, turn off the notifications. What you don't want is notifications popping up saying you've just had this email, or even that little mail thing that's calling at you from the bottom right-hand corner going, I don't even know what the email is, but I know I have a new email. Turn all of that stuff off. Focus on what you're focusing on, and let you can come back to email or come back to Teams at the time that you were supposed to. And in terms of workplace distractions, if we want to get our team working better, then we've got to help our team focus as much as possible. So one of the ideas was using that group time for Teams and chat, but some other ideas were, one of the things that we used to do at Efficient Portfolio, which we gave people little flags like you can see here to say I'm on focus time, or you can have a focus card, or maybe there's a policy where if my door is closed, please, I'm focusing. But that you need a visual way, or do not disturb if you're working remotely. You need a way of telling people that you're on focus time and then not to disturb you, because you will get so much more done and the work will be so much better than if you're constantly distracted by different things. It's one of the reasons why I've encouraged you at the start of today to avoid looking at your phone, because I know if you stay away from the mental distractions, you'll get so many better ideas as a result of the workshop. And I've talked about a little bit about doing stuff in no extra time before, so I'm going to skip over that. But I would like to just say, the final TED Talk, and I appreciate I've given you a few today, is this talk that is called Your Elusive Creative Genius. And it's by Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. Is that what it's called? I think. And it's a really lovely TED Talk. She talks about having a genius, not being a genius, and how that changes our approach. And I think on this topic, it's really interesting to think about how this concept of having a genius as opposed to being a genius is it's a bit of a loose connection to what I'm talking about in terms of distraction, but it's something that I would encourage you to watch in time.